In this video, we will present you the WaveMon reader. Once launched, just connect the USB of the WaveMon to the PC and the software will try to connect to the unit. The first view is the list of the measurements available in the unit, as you can see on the left. If you click on a measurement, then you will see a graph with the electric field and the average field in light color here. You can have some tooltips on each point. You can select to have only average or the instant value or both. Also, you can select a logarithmic scale in case you want to see more details in lower fields. Then you can export to CSV, copy this graph to clipboard or erase the measurements. So it's a very easy tool to see all the measurements stored in the unit. The second use of the software is to configure some parameters. Click the parameters and you will have access to all the sections where you can change the data. First, the date. Here you can synchronize with your PC in case the date is not correct. You can activate GPS. Then you can also modify some important parameters for the log and how the unit will measure. So first, the log interval. The minimum for low field is 10 seconds. Low field means a field below 10% of the limit, but you can define it to 20%, 30%. The minimum is 10%. In this case, the unit will store a point every 10 seconds if the field is below 10% and 1 second if the field is higher than 10%. This is used to avoid storing lots of data when there is no field. Keep in mind that the unit will always store the maximum, so even if here you define 60 seconds, every minute you will have the maximum of all points that occurred during the last 60 seconds, so you don't lose any information. Then we need to define the warning levels of the units. For each level 1 and 2, you can define vibration and sound. You can check only vibrations or only sound for each warning or both. You can define the level based on instant or average value. So here we have two recommendations only based on instant values. So in this case, you can say first level is at 100% and the second value is 200% on instant value. But what you can do with the WaveMon is define first alarm based on instant and second alarm based on average, because international standards specify the limits based on average. So in this case, you are covered. You know, if there is a high field level on instant value, but you also know if you are very close to the limit based on the average. We recommend to put quite some margin here to be safe. Then you can also define the average time. So in this case, it's 30 minutes, but you can also define 6 minutes. You can show the average value on the LEDs of the unit. Then you can enable the snooze alarm function, which is very useful, especially if you define the warning levels based on average, because you can snooze the alarm for 1 minute by shortly pressing the on and off button of the WaveMon. Once you define all the values you're interested in, you just need to save changes and it will save all the parameter changes in the WaveMon. Of course, here you can erase all the measurements in case you want to empty the memory for another worker. In the middle, you have some more parameters with the date format, time format, and languages. We have also access to dark theme if it's easier to read for you. The firmware update by default, if you install the last WaveMon software, it will detect if the unit needs a new firmware. So this is only to be used in case we send you a special firmware to test. So it shouldn't be used by default. Then the last parameter are the limits. So the WaveMon allows you to work against the limit for workers or the general public. So you can choose whichever you want to use. Then here you have some information about the software and also about the unit you've connected to with the firmware and hardware version. Just click here to copy the information to the clipboard in case you need some support. So for example, you can copy to your email you want to send. So we have all the information to be able to help you with your request. So that's it for the software. Very simple to use. Click back to go back to the measurements. Once you've finished, you unplug the WaveMon and then you close the software.